Tonight, the death of millionaire businessman and philanthropist John Ilhan. The founder of the Crazy John's mobile phone empire amassed a personal fortune of some $310 million. A son of Turkish migrants, he was devoted to his young family, committed to his company and generous in his support of community causes. John Ilhan was 42.
Well, money can buy a lot of things. John can't, it like this place here, but it can't buy health.
No, it can't, Martin, but it can help.
He was a man with a lot, incredible wealth, power, fame and respect.
Come on, a big proper kiss.
But John Ilhan's first consideration always was the health of his family, his wife Trish and their 4 children, and they weren't the only ones.
I'm a healthy guy, and so is Trish, and all of our brothers and sisters, and the whole family's quite healthy.
How ironic then that the man who constantly worried about everyone else's health never returned from a power walk this morning. John Ilhan died after a heart attack on this bike track near his home in Brighton, south of Melbourne.
Disbelief.
Brendan Fleiter is the MD of Crazy John's, the phone company started by John Ilhan.
I've known John for more than 10 years. I've worked with him. There are staff here that have been with the business since day one. John's first employee is still an employee at Crazy John's, over 16 years. So the staff have taken it very hard, as you would understand. He came to Australia from Turkey at a very young age. He grew up in very working class circumstances. He was always very proud of his heritage and the fact that he'd come from Broadmeadows and the wrong side of the tracks in some people's mind, and he was very, very determined to be successful.
I have to succeed no matter what it is. I have to have what I want. And when somebody says, oh, you can't do that, I think, pardon? You watch me. Watch me, just to prove a point. Might not be the right decision, but just to prove a point, I'll do it.
John was one of the proudest men I have ever met. I remember coming here to his home in Brighton in Melbourne. We stood in the kitchen and we discussed life. And John told me why he was so proud, because one of his school teachers had said to him that he was useless and he would never make it. But as we all know, John did make it. An empire worth $310 million, a beautiful wife, beautiful children, and now this.
He was passionate, he was a risk taker, and he had big dreams and big visions, but unlike many people, he actually executed on them and made them a reality.
So did you learn some life lessons in Broadie?
Absolutely, how to be bashed and how to protect yourself and run for cover and try to find good friends to protect you.
Everything you need in business today.
Absolutely. This is where it all came from.
Okay.
That's why I'm so tough in business.
Tough in business, so soft in many other ways. John was always generous with his money and his time. Over the years, he and Trish were friends to many of us here at A Current Affair.
Light suit on a man, it's working.
You like it?
Yeah. But the no tie's a bit cheeky, I think.
Listen, that wasn't intentional.
Crazy John is in here himself, ladies and gentlemen. John Ilhan from Crazy John's.
Australia's a sports-loving country. John was a sports nut. He followed all sorts of sport. He was a pretty good sportsman in his day himself, and particularly in soccer. He loved sport. It was a natural fit for him.
We'll just follow you, and you just go about as you're doing it, buy it, and then we'll pick it up.
When John was discovered by the Discovery Channel, we were there.
John, it's fair to say you've probably conquered Melbourne and the rest of Australia, but it looks like the rest of the world's taking a bit of interest as well.
Yes, Nick, it's a great honour.
We spent 2 days with the mobile phone king after his daughter Jada was diagnosed with a severe peanut allergy.
It's like a time bomb. It's quite serious. Her situation's so severe that she could die.
John put his money to immediate use. $1 million to start a foundation to find a cure.
And part of what John and I are trying to do now is, from what started out as one child and a personal situation between mother and daughter and father and daughter, has now grown to what I hope, where we can help the whole community, all children that suffer from the same sort of thing, through increasing awareness.
So before John committed his passion and time to this cause, there was really no one else working with us in this area.
Associate Professor Mimi Tang, the Director of Allergy and Immunology at the Royal Children's.
John's involvement has really made an enormous difference, and the whole allergy community will always be grateful for what he has created. I'm sure that his legacy will live on through the Ilhan Food Allergy Foundation and other activities that will spring from that.
There was a public side to his generosity, but there was also a private side which was even bigger, which I was privileged to see, but not many other people saw. And for me, I'll remember him as a fantastic risk taker, an incredibly sharp mind, and a passionate person. And he proved that you can have dreams and you can live them and you can achieve them if you work hard. And he worked very hard.
Mwah. How's that?
Oh, don't
wipe it.
Martin King with that report. Eddie Maguire and John Ilhan grew up in the same Melbourne suburb, Broadmeadows. They were good mates, and I spoke to Eddie late today from Melbourne. Ed, good to talk with you. You must have thought you were hearing things when you got this news today.
Couldn't believe it, Trace, and the business community, particularly in Melbourne today, the mobile phones are, ironically enough, have been going mad. Just people talking. Can't believe it that John, at 42 years of age, is dead. His capacity to get involved in so many community activities, his sense of humour, the great story of this migrant Turk from Broadmeadows who grew up at the same time in Broadie as I did, and to see what he's been able to do with his business career, but also the amount of philanthropy that he was involved in, and great just causes that he used to throw himself into. The fact that he's not with us any longer, it really is one of those ones that is hard to believe, still can't sink in. Because
it's not just the shock of his loss, it's the fact that he's not really, or wasn't really, a classic heart attack candidate, was he?
Well, you wouldn't have thought so. I mean, you have a look at the vision of him. He was, a very fit man. If anything, the only thing he did was smoke too much. But outside of that, he was Muslim, so he didn't drink and ate well. His daughter had a peanut allergy problem, and of course he's been throwing so much time and resources and money into trying to help the Royal Children's Hospital find a cure for the allergies for young kids. And that was what he was like. When something came up, he'd throw himself into it. But even taking that into account, I think he really looked after his diet and that of his family. So he certainly was the last person you'd think at his age, and the way he went about his business and even his demeanour. He was the sort of guy that could take on problems and walk through them, or at least so it seemed. But as we all know, you never know when the time's going to come.
What sort of toll do you think that long-running Telstra case might have taken on him, Ed?
Look, John, the last time I spoke to him and his business partners in recent times was very optimistic about the future, the way the business was going. Yeah, he had his battles with Telstra, but he also, had a magnificent business career from 1991 when he first opened up his store in Brunswick and sold me my first mobile phone, believe it or not. And, he was about the future and throwing himself into things. And I've seen him at charity events where I think he bid $50,000 once for a child's drawing that hung on his fridge. And he did it just because he wanted to give the money away and do good for the community. That's the sort of guy he was.
Have you spoken to Patricia today?
I haven't spoken to Patricia yet. Obviously, it's a little bit early. I've spoken with Brendan Fleiter, who is his partner and his mate and confidant. And the plan is, I think, to obviously look at the customs of the Muslim church to make sure that John is interred in the way that is fitting with his religious beliefs. Mm-hmm. I understand his parents are in Turkey, so the family are trying to get his parents back. And then we will all be planning to have a memorial, to pay tribute to a wonderful life, one that's been tragically cut short, but a life that has been wonderful and has touched so many people.
Right across the country and employing more than 600 people. And Crazy John's is now Australia's biggest independent phone retailer. He was recently listed as Australia's 126th richest man with an estimated fortune of $310 million. 4 children, and leaves behind, as well as those 4 children, his wife Patricia. He was also known as a very generous man. He set